I've been using a really simple mix to deal with aphids, whiteflies, and spider mites in my balcony garden. And honestly, when I first tried it, I didn't expect much. The recipe is very simple. For about 1 liter of water, I add 1 to 2 caps of BioB, a small spoon of molasses, and just 1 or 2 drops of dish soap. That's it. I gently mix everything together until it's fully dissolved and it's ready to use. I don't measure things too precisely, just keeping the general ratio has worked fine for me. When I spray, there's one thing I always pay attention to, and it makes a big difference. I spray both the top and the underside of the leaves. The underside is where aphids and spider mites usually hide, so if you skip that part, it's very hard to control them. I go slowly, plant by plant, almost like I'm checking in on each one. I usually spray in the late afternoon when the sunlight is softer and not too harsh. At that time, the leaves are cooler and the solution has more time to stay on the surface. In the first couple of days, I didn't really see obvious changes, and that's something I've learned with natural methods. They don't work instantly, but I kept going. By day 2 or 3, I started to notice that the aphids weren't clustering as heavily as before. Some of them were gone, and others looked weaker. Spider mites are harder to see, but I noticed that the leaves weren't getting worse anymore, no new damage spreading. After about a week, the difference became much clearer. New leaves started coming out healthier, greener, and overall, the plants looked more stable. I wouldn't say everything was completely gone, but it shifted from being out of control to something I could manage. The way I understand this mix is pretty simple. BioB is a type of beneficial microbes. When sprayed on the leaves, it helps create a kind of protective microbial environment. It's like adding a thin, living layer that makes it harder for pests to thrive. Molasses acts as food for those microbes, helping them stay active and effective longer. And the dish soap, even though it's just a tiny amount, plays an important role. It helps the liquid spread evenly across the leaf surface instead of forming droplets. At the same time, it breaks down the outer coating of pests like aphids and spider mites, making them easier to remove. But there are a few situations you should be careful about. The first one is the amount of dish soap. Too much can damage the leaves, especially the next day under sunlight. I actually made that mistake once, and a few young leaves got slightly burned. It wasn't too serious, but enough to remind me to keep it minimal. The second thing is timing. If you spray during strong sunlight, when the leaves are already hot, it can stress the plant. Late afternoon or early morning works much better. The third case is with young or delicate plants. Seedlings or soft leaf greens tend to be more sensitive. So I always test on a few leaves first, wait a day, and then decide if I should continue. Another situation is when the plant is already very weak. If it's heavily damaged, I don't spray too frequently. Instead, I space it out a bit and let the plant recover gradually. Right now, my routine is pretty simple. When the pest problem is active, I spray about 2 to 3 times a week. Not every day, just consistently. Once things are under control, I reduce it and only spray when needed. What I really like about this method is that it's gentle. It's not a quick, one spray and everything is gone solution, but it's something I can use regularly without worrying too much. Especially for a small balcony garden where I grow food to eat every day, that peace of mind matters a lot. And I've also noticed something else. When I slow down a little and pay closer attention to my plants, I start to understand them better. It's not just about reacting to pests, but seeing what the plant actually needs, which leaves to remove, which plants need rest, and which ones are ready to grow again. This mix is not the only solution, but for me, it's a simple and practical way to keep my garden balanced. If your plants are dealing with aphids, whiteflies, or spider mites, you can give this a try. You don't need to do too much at once. Just start with a small batch, spray, observe, and adjust from there. Sometimes, a small change like this is enough to help your garden recover. So yeah, this is what I've been doing lately, nothing complicated, but it's been helping my little garden slowly find its balance again. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but it's gentle enough that I can keep using it and still feel good about harvesting from my plants every day. If you're dealing with aphids, whiteflies, or spider mites, you can try this in your own way. You don't have to do everything at once. Just start small, spray a little, and see how your plants respond. Sometimes, a small change is all it takes for things to start turning around. And I'm really curious, what's your garden like right now? What are you growing? And how do you usually deal with pests? If you have a tip, or even a failed attempt, feel free to share it in the comments. I read all of them, and I learn a lot from you too. If you enjoy this kind of slow, simple gardening, nothing perfect, nothing fancy, just real, everyday experiences, you can subscribe to the channel. I'll keep sharing what I learn along the way, one small step at a time from this little balcony garden. Thank you for spending time here with me, and I'll see you in the next one.